Morning, how you doing? This is Kim Reads Urantia again. So today we're going to read from the Urantia book, but first I got Light the Flame by Andrew Harvey. Okay, so this one is from Aeschylus. Now, Aeschylus lived. He was a Greek writer of tragedy, and he lived around 500 BC. Writer of he wrote Greek tragedy. In plays. He wrote plays. So okay. Here we go. Bestow, O God, this grace on us, that in the school of suffering we should learn self-conquest, and through sorrow, even if it be against our will, learn self-control. All right, so this is awesome because this shows that, you know, we have to use our lessons. We have to accept our lessons and use our suffering to learn self-conquest. All right, so that we should not be mastered by our emotions. We need to master our emotions. We need to be captain of our own ships. Yep. And don't just expect everything to be, just perfect here for us. All right. Through our sorrow, even if it's against our will, so not my will, but God's will be done. And we learn self-control and caution and how to avoid mistakes. So, and wisdom, we're really becoming wise through this process. So that's important. It's important that we're willing. We don't seek suffering. That's a malaise. That's a problem for some people that feel that they need to seek suffering, seek martyrdom or something in order to be worthy or something like that. No, but we accept our suffering. We accept it. We accept the lot that's given to us. And we learn so much through it. We learn compassion, self-conquest, self-control. Consider being aware of other people and this seasons our souls, and we have to find. When I began to be grateful for my trials, that was a big sign to me that I'd made a lot of spiritual progress. So that's very important. Okay, could read our Urantia book here, paper 11, section 7 this time. So space functions of paradise. Okay. Space does not exist on any of the surfaces of paradise. Another bizarre statement. What is a surface of anything if that's the definition of a surface? A surface is something that has empty space on it that's available to support things in space, right? What is a surface, right? If one looked, quote unquote, directly up from the upper surface of paradise, one would see nothing but unpervaded space, right? Going out or coming in, just now coming in. Okay. So on the upper surface of paradise, we have the unpervaded space coming in and the pervaded space going out. Something like this. Space does not touch paradise. Space, how do I even think of space touching anything? Space is just empty, right? Oh, it's so bizarre. Space does not touch paradise. Only the quiescent mid-space zones come in contact with the central aisle. Paradise is the actually motionless nucleus of the relatively quiescent zones existing between pervaded and unpervaded space. Okay, so there's something between pervaded space and unpervaded space. So there's what, semi-pervaded space, or is it something different altogether? This is just so wild. Geographically, these zones appear to be a relative extension of paradise, but there probably is some motion in them. Okay, so there's no motion in paradise, but beings live there in the peripheral zones or something. There are residences there, but no motion. We know very little about them, but we observe that these zones of lessened space motion separate pervaded and unpervaded space. Similar zones once existed between the levels of pervaded space, but these are now less quiescent. Okay, this is just so crazy. Okay, paradise is the actually motionless nucleus of the relatively quiescent zones existing between pervaded and unpervaded space. Geographically, these zones appear to be a relative extension of paradise. Okay, the zones that are in between pervaded and non-pervaded space. Unpervaded space. The vertical cross section of total space would slightly resemble a Maltese cross. Okay, I had remembered this part from before. With the horizontal arms representing pervaded universe space and the vertical arms representing unpervaded reservoir space. Okay, because reality, or that it's flat, like, and this was hard for me to accept because I don't like flat. I don't want to be flat. But there's I don't, what I'm getting is, I don't know, time is a higher aspect of reality than space. So in lower forms of reality, like we're in, there's more space and less time. So when we get closer to paradise, there's more time and less space. If that makes any sense at all. It doesn't, but okay. Okay, so anyway, the Maltese cross. So the vertical up and down is unpervaded reservoir space. And the horizontal arms of the cross are where all the creation is. The areas between the four arms would separate them somewhat as the mid-space zones separate pervaded and unpervaded space. Again, though, I'm trying to think in 3 dimensions. as usual, but there's not 3 dimensions in this deal because it's mostly flat anyway. So, right. So the Maltese cross is kind of flat anyway. So, but up and down, there is a vertical dimension, but the horizontal dimension goes out flat, this way. So I'm wondering if then the upper dimension would have to be perpendicular to that, which would perpendicular planes that would indicate 3 dimensions. But if it's this way, it's still perpendicular to this. See, this, whether I go this way or this way, it's still perpendicular. See? Or maybe per unpervaded space is 3-dimensional. I don't know. But then their dimensional thinking is whack because there's all this scientific or mathematical conjecture that there's, you can have as many dimensions as you want, but we are just, because we're here, we're kind of trapped in 3 dimensions here, our thought is. But I don't know, that's always been like a central tenet, this 3-dimensional idea of my conceptualization of, because I think it has to reflect the reality, the ultimate reality, the fact that we experience 3 dimensions, but maybe not. Maybe there's something more. I don't know. I'm getting way too into this. This is way, okay, the whole 3-dimensional thing. I have to try to get away from that. Okay. All right. See how crazy this makes me? This is just so wild. Okay. So these quiescent mid-space zones, the areas between the Maltese cross, grow larger and larger at greater and greater distances from paradise, and eventually encompass the borders of all space and completely encapsulate both the space reservoirs and the entire horizontal extension of pervaded space. All right. I'm just going to keep going because I'm not going to, because it's hard. I mean, sweethearts, I don't want to bore you on this here, and I'm babbling. I know I am. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. Okay, I just got to keep going. Space is neither a sub-absolute condition within, nor the presence of the unqualified absolute. Neither is it a function of the ultimate. It is a bestowal of paradise. Well, thank you for the space, paradise. Thank you, I guess. And the space of the grand universe and that of all outer regions is believed to be exactly pervaded by the ancestral space potency of the unqualified absolute. Okay. The space of the grand universe, okay, the populated universe, and that of all other regions is believed to be actually pervaded by the ancestral space potency of the unqualified absolute. Okay. So unqualified absolute is the potential. Okay, but that's pervaded space. Okay. So all pervaded space is actually pervaded by the potential of the unqualified absolute. See, in here, I was equating kind of the unpervaded space with the unqualified absolute, because that's got to be a deeper level of potential. Okay, but that's something even more raw is unpervaded space. A reservoir of space itself, if that just blows your mind. Okay, from near approach to peripheral paradise, this pervaded space extends horizontally outward through the fourth space level and beyond the periphery of the master universe. But how far beyond, we do not know. Okay. If you imagine a finite but inconceivably large V-shaped plane, V-shaped plane, like triangle, V-shaped plane, or it's like open at one end or something, or fuzzy at one end or something, a V-shaped plane situated at right angles to both upper and lower surfaces of paradise. Okay. Its point nearly tangent to peripheral paradise. Okay, so a V-shaped plane here. So here's paradise. Here's a V-shaped plane with a plane, so two-dimensional, with its point nearly touching paradise. Then visualize this plane in elliptical revolution about paradise. Its revolution would roughly outline the volume of pervaded space. Okay, so this plane of revolution, though, because we're talking about volume, would not be, the plane of revolution would be perpendicular to the plane itself, right? So it's not going on. So here's paradise here, right? Paradise is flat. So this thing isn't going around it like this. Like here's the V, right? Okay, so it's not going around like this around the plane, right? It's going around like this. Like this. So it has volume. Okay. Okay. Got it. There is an upper and a lower limit to horizontal space with reference to any given location of the universes. In the universes. If one could move far enough at right angles to the plane of Orvonton, at right angles, either up or down, eventually the upper or lower limit of pervaded space would be encountered. Upper and a lower limit to horizontal space. Okay, so it's thick, right? If one could move far enough at right angles to the plane of Orvonton, either up or down, eventually the upper low limit of pervaded space would be encountered. Okay, so there's a plane here, so it's like it's a certain width. If you go up or down here, yep, within the known dimensions of the master universe, these limits draw farther and farther apart at greater and greater distances from paradise. Space thickens, and it thickens somewhat faster than does the plane of creation, the universes. Okay, so when you get past the grand universe to the master universes, Here, the pervaded space is going to be thicker. Okay, so it's going to go out in a V shape this way. So it's going to be from paradise here, it's really little, and then here you start the after Havona, it starts to get wider this way slowly. Okay. All right. The relatively quiet zones between the space levels, such as the ones separating the 7 superuniverses from the first outer space level, are enormous elliptical regions of quiescent space activities. So things are going on there. They're space activities, but they're very quiescent. They're quiet. These zones separate the vast galaxies which race around paradise in orderly procession. Okay. Space levels. And what are the space levels? Space thickens. Okay, so it goes out in this plane, but it thickens. Okay, so there's, yeah, okay. How do they separate the galaxies? Because the galaxies are all in the plane. Okay, so there's big elliptical regions of less space activities. Okay, you may visualize the first outer space level where untold universes are now in process of formation as a vast procession of galaxies swinging around paradise, bounded above and below by the mid-space zones of quiescence, and bounded on the inner and outer margins by relatively quiet space zones. I think they're just talking about spaces in between galaxy formation and universe formation or something. See, and they use galaxies differently. The word galaxy might mean universe, or might mean, it doesn't mean what we normally think of as the Milky Way galaxy or the Andromeda galaxy. It's a different, because that word was just shaping, its meaning was just being shaped. I've often wondered if a galaxy equals a universe in this book. I don't know. That's a supposition. But we'll see. I don't know. I guess these things only we find out later after we pass through. Okay, but I got to keep going here. Okay, a space level thus functions as an elliptical region of motion, surrounded on all sides by relative motionlessness. Such relationships of motion and quiescence constitute a curved space path of lessened resistance to motion, which is universally followed by cosmic force and emergent energy as they circle forever around the Isle of Paradise. Okay, so it just came into my mind, like, okay, so everything comes, these force directives come from paradise, but they come out and they make a curlicue, which is like a universe or a galaxy, right? Okay, and these little, like, I'm thinking of all these little vines that come out here and are making little curlicues. And so this, in between the curlicues, there's kind of like this area of quiescence, okay, that and within the curlicues, which are like galaxies and stuff, those are the more activities where creation is happening, and these galaxies are forming, okay, and they circle around paradise, these little curlicues. You know what I mean? Like, goes around, yeah. Okay. like a little vine. It gets curly at the end. In on itself, kind of like starts to curl. And that makes a beautiful pattern. Okay, this alternate zoning of the master universe in association with the alternate clockwise and counterclockwise flow of the galaxies is a factor in the stabilization of physical gravity designed to prevent the accentuation of gravity pressure to the point of disruptive and dispersive activities. Such an arrangement exerts anti-gravity influence and acts as a brake upon otherwise dangerous velocities. Okay, so they made these zones of like quiescent activities, less activity, alternating with more activity, so that it could be in balance. We could have balance and harmony in there, and things wouldn't get out of control. They'd be like, okay, slow down now. So the alternate zoning of the master universe and associated with the alternate clockwise and counterclockwise flow of galaxies. So they go both ways, clockwise and counterclockwise. Okay, so that they're I guess what's really good is that they're planning just for the whole thing to be stable and to not go too fast and stuff like that. Okay, this stuff really, just like on me. I know. I think yeah, it's hard. It's hard to deal with, but okay, thank you for being with me during this time. And we'll get through it, We always do. To me, this is harder than the forward. Forward, everybody's like, oh no, the forward. I'm going like, well, that's nothing. What are you talking about? All right, I'm gonna let you go. You guys have a really good day. Thank you very much. Bye.